So, my wife, my daughter, and I are taking a trip to New York. It's going to be a long road trip, but we're going to visit some family along the way. And of course, I'm going to be doing my digital nomad thing. So, we'll see how this goes. Enjoy the ride. So working from home definitely has its perks, and one of those things is the ability to be a digital nomad. So being able to just travel and work at any location you want to. Now, my wife and I, we really enjoy traveling a lot, but honestly, for the last year or so, I think we've really felt really held back from doing it, and I think the excuse that we've made is that we now have a daughter. She's now a toddler, and while this can be a factor, it definitely is a challenge to travel with a 2-year-old. I think ultimately this is probably not what's held me back the most. I think it's honestly just the fact of the conventions we're so used to with our work. The fact that we usually only get off, 1 or 2 weeks out of the year to go on a vacation or whatnot. But when you own your own business, those rules don't really apply. You make your own schedule. You can really travel and you can do whatever you want in that regard. Ultimately, I have to still make sure that my business continues to run, and so I am going to be working about a few hours each day on this trip. But other than that, I'm going to go ahead and enjoy myself, get to enjoy a new place. And so we're traveling up to New York City, and my wife has really not spent hardly any time there. I've been a few times, but I'm looking forward to it. We're going to meet her sister up there, and along the way, to break up the trip, we're also visiting some different relatives who haven't even met our daughter yet. So right now we're in Clinton, Maryland, and just spending some time with the family. And so I'm just glad that we decided to go for it, and I'm excited that we'll be able to make these memories together as a family. So we finally arrived at our Airbnb. We're staying just outside the city in New Jersey. It was a pretty good trip overall. Pretty nice drive. Honestly, the most stressful part was just finding parking when we first got here. Ended up having to find a parking garage and then walk a few blocks. And man, it is really cold. Definitely not like Charleston. And of course, the wind makes it even worse. So hopefully there won't be as much wind the next few days when we're kind of touring around the city a little bit. So for the rest of the evening, I think we'll just grab some dinner, and I'll just get a little bit of work done and just relax, because we're definitely tired. So we're actually going on a quick adventure. Gonna get a New York slice. So now we're just finding the train station around here, and gonna go downtown.
The next stop is Grove Street.
This is the last stop. Thank you for riding Path.
Definitely unprepared for how cold it would be here, so we definitely had to make a stop to get some hats and some gloves. We had a few things, but definitely not quite enough, so I think we're hopefully prepared for the rest of the week then.
still trying to get some work done on that trip. Usually I'll just kind of stay back in the Airbnb or the hotel and work or find a coffee shop close by, but because it's such a difficult thing to get into the city and take some time, I decided that I'm going to find a coffee shop here, and we'll get a little bit of work done and then have some more fun after that.
Digital nomad life, there are a few things that you need to know, and I'm by no means an expert, but this is what I've learned from living in Haiti and working, and also doing some traveling and working along the way. One thing is that you need to think about where you're going to work, where there's going to be the least distractions, where you have Wi-Fi, where you can get enough done. For me, I love working at coffee shops. Right now I'm at Stumptown Coffee, just blocks away from Times Square, and this is actually in the lobby of the Ace Hotel. So you can see there's a whole bunch of people here just at their laptops working, and so this is obviously a great place that you could try out. But I know for some people that's not their cup of tea, and or a cup of coffee, I should say. But if you need to go somewhere that's a lot quieter, a lot less distractions, you might consider finding a local library depending on where you are. You also might be able to use the hotel lobby where you're staying, assuming that they have a Wi-Fi connection that you can use. The other aspect you have to keep in mind is to manage your expectations for how much work you're really going to get done on your trip. Now, for one thing, if you are going and spending 3 to 6 months at a location like some digital nomads do, that's different. You can kind of get settled in and then, get into more of a routine. But if you're going on more of a trip like this, you kind of have to just expect that you're only going to get a few hours of work done at a time. And for most people, that's going to be pretty tough if you have a really heavy workload. So to do this, you need to do one of two things. You need to either plan out ahead of time and basically work ahead so you get most of your work done, so that when the trip comes, there's only a little bit left that you need to do. The other side that you can do, especially if you're an entrepreneur like me, is find ways to outsource the work that you need to do. So I have a team of contractors that I work with on the marketing side of things, and so that way, I basically just communicate with them through Slack, and it's even easy for me just to check in with them real briefly for 5 minutes just on my phone. I also release video content, and so this month, I've outsourced my video editing for the first time, and so that's really saved me a ton of time, and that's part of the reason where I'm able to take a trip like this month. I just have a lot less on my plate this month, and that all comes from outsourcing.
Like I got a good bit of work done. Now it's time to go eat and go tour the city a little bit more. Alright, so we got a little bit of a late start today, but we're going to get to go see a Broadway play and get some lunch in just a moment. But first, really need some coffee.
What'd you think?
It was really, really good. It was amazing. First Broadway play, I loved it.
Well, we just got back to our room, and today was a pretty jam-packed day. And full disclosure, I didn't get any work done today. We, had some different things that we got to do, which were great, but it just took a little bit longer than expected, and so sometimes plans change, and that's okay. I think that's one key that I also want to just mention is you have to be flexible. if you're going to work and travel at the same time. And you're traveling to enjoy yourself. So if you have a day like this where you plan to work but it just didn't work out, you didn't get the space to do it, I think that's okay. You'll be able to make up for it in some other way. And for me, I feel like I got a lot of work done yesterday that I felt pretty good about it. I'm not too worried about it. So, but we still got a few more days left of this trip. I'm pretty excited for what's left. Definitely I'm not excited for the driving, but it will definitely be nice to see some other relatives on the way back in Pennsylvania. And yeah, we'll just keep rolling. So yesterday we began our travel back down towards Charleston, but of course making some different stops along the way. We got to central Pennsylvania, just a little bit away from where I grew up in Hershey, Pennsylvania. Got to visit my sister Lizzie and her 2 kids. And then after that we kind of traveled to this rural little village of Amberson, Pennsylvania, and it's really in the middle of nowhere. You can see some of the landscape behind me, but it's definitely very beautiful. So it's been awesome to get to spend time with my grandpa and his girlfriend Anne. And so right behind me, I just have to show you this. This is where we're staying. This is a little cottage, a little loft that my grandpa actually built from the ground up. It's pretty incredible. I gotta show you inside. Let's go. So when you walk in here, you can just smell an amazing smell of wood. I think it's pine. So everything you see from this futon to the shelving, my grandpa built it. Let's go upstairs and kind of see where we've been staying. Let's take a look in the master bedroom really quick, and we'll try not to wake our baby in the process. Here's the kitchen. Just look at that view. So if you also want to be a digital nomad, there's a few resources that I can share with you real quick. And one of them is the book, The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. I've actually read it, I've read it about a year ago, and I bought the audiobook version to listen to it all over again. Been listening to it on this car ride. I think it's something that I'm actually going to revisit probably every single year, just because the whole mindset of it is just really revolutionary. So in the book, he basically talks about how you're able to achieve this life where you're not having to work endless hours to achieve that eventual retirement, but what he talks about is basically these mini retirements that you take constantly throughout your life. And so he's a big proponent of travel, and he basically teaches you how you can automate your life and automate your business so that you can create that life that will allow you to travel and go on trips like this. Now, the second resource that I would really recommend is something called time blocking. Now, this basically takes advantage of something called Parkinson's Law, which basically means that time expands or shrinks based on the time that you give towards a certain task. So, for instance, if you decide that you're going to work on a task for an hour, that means that you are going to spend that whole hour to work on it. But if you gave yourself 3 hours to do the exact same task, it would actually take you 3 hours to do the same task. So with time blocking, what we're doing is we're basically saying, okay, I'm going to work from this time to this time in this short sprint, and we're going to commit to not multitask. We're only going to work on that one thing to basically just get it done. And by giving just a short amount of time to it, you're able to kind of cut away the fat and make sure that you are being more efficient and possibly not being too perfectionistic with it, but actually just getting it done. And often the result is the same as if you had given it a lot longer amount of time. So I definitely recommend time blocking, especially if you are going to be traveling like this, where you only have short amount of time in a certain location where you can work. maybe you just have a little bit of time at a coffee shop. Time blocking is really going to be helpful in those situations. So this whole idea has been such a game changer for me that I'm actually writing a book on time blocking, and probably by the time this video is released, I'll have released it. So if you're interested in checking out that book, I'll be sure and provide a link to it in the description below, as well as a time blocking day planner that I'll be releasing that will help you to kind of stay on track with your time blocks. So I hope you find that helpful. This has been a really awesome trip. I'm really just proud of us for doing this and not letting any excuses kind of hold us back from traveling. So I really hope that you gained something from this video, and if this encouraged you or inspired you in any way, please just let me know in the comments below. And if you are a digital nomad and you have more tips that you want to share, I'd love to hear those too, because I'm still learning, and I'm really excited because of this trip to do more trips in the future. And of course, I'll be sure to take you along the ride with us. So thank you so much. Be sure and like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thanks again for watching, and enjoy the entrepreneur life.